You think it's love, but it's not. It never was. That ache in your chest, that sinking feeling when they don't reply, that anxiety disguised as butterflies. It isn't romance, it's dependency, it's withdrawal, it's addiction. But nobody tells you that. Because we've romanticized suffering. We've dressed up emotional need as destiny. We've called our trauma chemistry. And the more it hurts, the more we convince ourselves it must be real. You weren't taught how to love. You were taught how to crave, how to confuse possession with connection, how to fear silence, how to chase validation and call it intimacy. No one showed you what healthy love looks like, only what it feels like to beg for pieces of it. And so you find someone, and they make you feel seen, not because they love you, but because they reflect back what you've been starving for your entire life. And then it begins. That subtle shift, that growing fear, the thought that if they leave, you'll break, that without them, you're nothing, that your identity depends on being needed, being chosen, being enough. That's not love. That's a cage. But you won't notice it at first, because it doesn't arrive with chains. It arrives with longing, with obsession, with the high of being desired. It gives you dopamine, then disappears. It gives you hope, then goes silent, and you chase it, harder, faster, until you forget who you were before they showed up. You start bending, little by little, reshaping your edges to fit into theirs. You laugh when it's not funny. You agree when your gut screams no. You apologize when you're the one bleeding, because deep down, you believe love means sacrifice, that it's normal to lose yourself for someone else. That pain is just the price you pay to not be alone. But here's the truth. Love doesn't demand your disappearance. Addiction does. Addiction whispers, just one more chance. Just one more night. Just one more apology. It keeps you hooked with the illusion that this time will be different, that this time they'll stay, that this time you'll be enough to fix what's broken inside them. But the more you give, the less you recognize yourself. You stop asking what you need. You stop honoring your boundaries. You start measuring your worth through their eyes. And when they pull away, you panic. Not because they're gone, but because with them, they've taken the version of you that only existed in their presence. And still, you call it love. But love doesn't leave you empty. Love doesn't manipulate your silence. Love doesn't make you prove your value just to be tolerated. That's emotional starvation. That's trauma reenactment. That's you chasing a ghost of approval that was never yours to earn in the first place. The more you suffer, the more people will applaud your loyalty. They'll call it passion. They'll say, every relationship has its ups and downs. They'll romanticize your wounds as proof of depth. But bleeding together isn't bonding, and suffering in sync isn't intimacy. It's just mutual destruction wrapped in poetic lies. You stay not because you're happy, but because you're afraid of the silence that comes after. Afraid of the mirror you'll face without them there to distract you from yourself. You think letting go will break you. But what's really breaking you is holding on. You've mistaken intensity for authenticity. You think the fire means it's real, but not every burn is a sign of warmth. Some fires exist only to consume, and this one, it's eating you alive. Because it's not just about them anymore. It's about the version of you that only exists when you're with them. The version that feels worthy. The version that finally feels chosen. You're addicted not to the person, but to the reflection of yourself they temporarily allow you to see. And when they withdraw, they don't just take their presence, they take your illusion of value with them, and you collapse. Again, you tell yourself it's love because that's easier than admitting it's dependence. Because if it's love, the pain has purpose. If it's love, the chaos is justified. If it's love, you don't have to leave. But what if it isn't? What if this whole time you've been calling your prison a relationship? There's a moment, quiet, brief, but undeniable, when you realize you're more afraid of being alone than being hurt. That the pain of absence feels heavier than the pain of being disregarded. So you stay, you shrink, you survive. But survival isn't living, and silence isn't peace. You tell yourself, they're just going through something. They didn't mean it. This is what love looks like when it's real. But deep down, you know, it shouldn't feel like this. It shouldn't feel like walking on glass every time you speak. It shouldn't feel like you're auditioning for affection that used to come freely. Real love doesn't require negotiation. It doesn't put conditions on your worth. It doesn't vanish and return like a drug you can't quit. But addiction? Addiction thrives on uncertainty. It feeds off emotional highs and withdrawal lows. It wants you confused, off balance, desperate for another fix of attention. So when they disappear, you don't breathe. You wait. Every notification becomes a heartbeat. Every silence, a scream. You check your phone like it owes you answers. Like maybe, just maybe, this time they'll realize you're enough. But they don't. Because this isn't about them anymore. It's about the hole inside you that you're begging them to fill. And they can't. Because it was never theirs to fix. The cruelest part of all this? You think it's your fault. You think if you were more patient, they'd stay. If you were more understanding, they'd change. If you just loved them harder, they'd finally choose you fully. But that's the lie addiction tells. That you just haven't earned it yet. That maybe the next version of you will finally be enough. So you chase. You mold. You erase yourself to become whatever keeps them from leaving. And when they do leave, you don't just grieve them. You grieve the self you became to keep them. You grieve the hope you built in their shadow. But here's what no one tells you. That hope wasn't love. It was survival instinct. It was the child in you still trying to win over someone emotionally unavailable. You weren't in love. You were in a loop that starts with attention, escalates with intensity, and ends with collapse. Then it resets. Same person or a different face, the pattern stays until you see it, until you name it, until you choose to step out. But stepping out hurts, because freedom is lonely at first, because you've been trained to mistake chaos for connection, and silence for punishment. But silence isn't the enemy, it's the beginning. Silence is not punishment, it's exposure. It reveals what the noise was hiding, how empty you've felt for years, how long you've been performing love instead of receiving it. Without them, there's no more distraction, no one left to chase, no reaction to wait for. Just you, and everything you've avoided by staying addicted. And that's where the withdrawal hits hardest. Not from them, from the identity you built around being wanted. Because when no one is needing you, validating you, loving you, you're forced to ask the question that terrifies you most. Who am I when I'm not being chosen? You scroll, you stare, you replay conversations, you rewrite texts you'll never send, and deep inside, that voice starts whispering, "You're not enough. You were too much. You'll always be too hard to love." But that voice, it isn't yours. It's an echo of everyone who fed on your silence, everyone who praised your loyalty, but never returned it. You internalized their absence as proof of your unworthiness. You made their inconsistency your fault. And now, you carry a weight that was never meant to be yours. But here's the truth. You weren't too much. You were just too real for someone who didn't want to meet themselves in your depth. You didn't lose them. You lost the illusion that they could ever hold you fully. This is the moment most people run, not because they want to, but because they've never been here before, alone, undistracted, face to face with the truth. No noise, no chase, no fix, just them and the ache. Because once the illusion breaks, there's no going back. You can't unsee how much of yourself you gave away just to feel something. You can't pretend the love was real when it only existed on the edge of abandonment. So now the work begins. Not the work of winning someone back, but of reclaiming every piece of yourself you surrendered in the name of love. You start by sitting with the silence, by letting it burn, by listening to every cracked, wounded voice inside you that says you're unworthy, and choosing not to believe it this time. Because pain isn't your enemy. Avoidance is. Numbing is. Running back to the same cycle just to feel temporary relief. That's the real betrayal. They were never your home. They were your escape from building one. And now, brick by brick, you have to build it within. No shortcuts, no saviors, no substitutions. You'll shake. You'll reach for old habits. You'll be tempted to text, to explain, to plead for closure. But closure isn't found in answers. It's found in boundaries. And sometimes the most powerful boundary is silence that doesn't beg. You don't heal by going back. You heal by choosing not to return, even when every cell in your body screams for the familiar pain. Because that pain, it's not love, it's memory. It's the echo of your nervous system reacting to patterns you never consented to, but learned to survive in. And now, survival isn't enough. Now, you want wholeness. You want peace that doesn't ask you to bleed for it. But to get there, you have to face the hardest truth of all. No one is coming to save you. Not the one you're still waiting on. Not the apology that never came. Not the perfect relationship you built in your head to outrun the mess inside you. It's on you. To break the pattern. To stand in the middle of the emotional storm and not reach for chaos just because it's familiar. To love yourself not as a reward for being perfect, but as a rebellion against the voices that taught you weren't enough. It will feel unnatural. Wrong, even. Because choosing yourself when you've been trained to self-abandon feels like betrayal. But it's not. It's return. It's resurrection. It's the first moment you say, "I will not shrink for love again." Not for them. Not for anyone. Because now you see the truth. If it cost you your peace, your voice, yourself, it was never love to begin with. There's a strange silence after liberation. It's not joy, not yet. It's emptiness, raw, unfamiliar, but clean. It's the space where your addiction used to live, and now it waits to be filled with something real, not with distractions, not with another almost, not with the comfort of being needed, but with you, fully, finally, undiluted. You'll start to notice things. The way you breathe deeper when no one's watching. The way your mind slows when you're not bracing for the next emotional blow. The way your body softens without having to perform love to receive it. This is what healing feels like. Not a breakthrough moment, but a quiet return to self. Moment by moment, day by day, you begin choosing differently. You no longer chase the ones who ghost you. You no longer explain yourself to stay worthy. You no longer tolerate emotional crumbs and call it a feast. You stop seeing red flags as challenges. You stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. You stop identifying love by how much it hurts. Because you've felt real now. Real solitude, real clarity, real power. Not the kind they gave you, but the kind you found when they left. And that power, it's unshakable, because no one gave it to you, so no one can take it away. Now you see it clearly. It was never about them. It was always about the part of you that didn't believe you were enough without suffering. The version of you that learned to call pain love, because love without pain was too unfamiliar to trust. But you're not that version anymore. You've sat in the silence. You've faced the ache. You've looked your wounds in the eye and refused to keep bleeding for anyone who wouldn't even stay. And now, you don't crave their chaos. You don't beg for their attention. You don't collapse at their silence. You've outgrown the need to be chosen, because you've finally chosen yourself. That's the shift. Not loud, not dramatic, just real, solid, unbreakable. And if they ever come back, with apologies, with promises, with justifications, you won't need revenge. You won't need closure. You won't need anything, because the version of you that would have begged them to stay no longer exists. And here's the brutal truth you were never told. The pain you feel when love leaves is not because they took something from you. It's because they mirrored the part of you that was already missing. So stop searching for someone to complete you. You were never half. The only thing missing was the moment you finally realized you don't owe your soul to be loved. That moment is now. And if it hurts, good. That's the sound of the chain snapping. That's the silence after the scream. That's the moment you wake up and realize you were never in love. You were in withdrawal.